So thanks for joining me, Sylvie. It's so good. I know there's lots of questions out there, and you've been talking to many people out there that just want to know a little bit more about how do we use our mind to help us get the life that we want. So what's one of the questions that you had that you wanted to ask today?
Thanks, Di. Yeah, I think it's important that we make decisions, and that process is a really, really important one. So my first question is about, how do I know the difference between ego and intuition that is guiding me towards making a decision?
Yeah, such a good question. And you're right, the decision-making process, it's ours. We can't get anyone else to do it for us. And so we do have to rely on our guidance system, which is our intuition. What I know to be true is that we each have that guidance system within us, and it never falters. Our intuition, our inner guidance system, is always spot on. And it's normally, it's funny because I will say it's usually the first answer we get. It's the first instinct that not instinct, but the intuition that we get first up. And then very quickly it's followed by our ego normally. And the difference between the two is that you immediately know. I'm just thinking about a few situations for me recently where I immediately got the message, no. But then my mind was like, well, and I start to try and reason and make it work and, think it through. Intuition is instant, it's quiet, it's not bossy. So it doesn't harp on, in a bossy tone, but my ego does. My ego is very forceful, loud, ego can come in the form of even fear, things like that. So it's your intuition is always going to be something that's looking at your growth, and your ego, which is often coming from your programming, that's going to look to keep you safe. So intuition will be growth orientated, which sometimes can be like, oh, I'm going somewhere where I've never been, but I know that I actually want to. Whereas the ego will be like, no, just stay safe, look at all this, and maybe fear will be coming in as a result. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, it does. And so, for example, in the dating sense, so when you're dating somebody, when you're meeting new people, and you're kind of going with that gut feeling, would you say that's again the same distinction between the first initial feeling that you have versus the one that tries to make a situation work? Or is that the fear that comes in that stops us sometimes to actually move ahead with something and take that leap of faith and get to know someone?
This is really a good question, because in my experience, it's been that I know, and I will preface this with, I know the person, the characteristics, I know how I want to feel in a relationship. And that's really important for people to do, is to get down on, get a list of how do I want to feel in a relationship? And then you get the list of, well, what makes me feel that way, And so you start to really understand what you're looking for. And then when you're presented with, a possible partner, you do know pretty quickly any warning signs of, that's not really what I'm looking for. Most of us, in my experience, have then gone, well, maybe I can make it work. And that's the ego side coming in. Whereas your little intuition just sort of says, straight away. And it might be the smallest thing, but then we try to go against it. And I think that's where we get into trouble, like you said, down the track. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Yeah. I
think, like you said, though, that there is that, and I think that's where it comes in when you said, sometimes we've got to take a leap of faith. I think the leap of faith is more connected to, I have an intuitive hunch about this. I can't see the 10 steps in front of me. I just know that it feels right. I'm going to go with it. But most people are sort of going, oh, well, I'm going to try. I've got a bit of an inkling that this isn't right, but I'm going to try and make it work and take a leap of faith. That's the, you know, that's the upside down version. Yeah. The leap.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm.
Comes from your intuition. Yeah.